A reading from the book of the prophet Isaiah. Thus says the Lord, observe what is right, do what is just, for my salvation is about to come, my justice about to be revealed. The foreigners who join themselves to the Lord, ministering to him, loving the name of the Lord, and becoming his servants, all who keep the Sabbath free from profanation and hold to my covenant. Them I will bring to my holy mountain, and make joyful in my house a prayer. Their burnt offerings and sacrifices will be acceptable on my altar, for my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples. Verbum Domini.
Gracious and bless us, and let your face shed its light upon us. So will your ways be known upon earth, and all nations learn your salvation. O God, let all the nations praise you. Let the nations be glad and shout for joy. With uprightness you rule the peoples. You guide the nations on earth. O God, let all the nations praise you. The earth has yielded its fruit, for God our God has blessed us. May God still give us his blessing, that all the ends of the earth may revere him. O God, let all the nations praise you.
A reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Romans. Brothers and sisters, I am speaking to you Gentiles, inasmuch as I am the apostle of the Gentiles. I glory in my ministry in order to make my race jealous, and thus save some of them. For if their rejection is the reconciliation of the world, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead? For the gifts and the call of God are irrevocable, just as you once disobeyed God, but have now received mercy because of their disobedience. So they have now disobeyed, in order that, by virtue of the mercy shown to you, they too may now receive mercy. For God delivered all to disobedience, that he might have mercy upon all. Verbum Domini.
Deo gratias.
Jesus proclaimed the gospel of the kingdom and cured every disease among the people.
Dominus vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
Lectio Sancti Evangelii secundum Matteum.
Gloria tibi, Domine.
At that time, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon, and behold, a Canaanite woman of that district came and called out, "Have pity on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is tormented by a demon." But Jesus did not say a word in answer to her. Jesus' disciples came and asked him, "Send her away, for she keeps calling out after us." He said in reply, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But the woman came and did Jesus homage, saying, "Lord, help me." He said in reply, "It is not right to take the food of the children and throw it to the dogs." She said, "Please, Lord, for even the dogs eat the scraps that fall from the table of their masters." Then Jesus said to her in reply, "O woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish." And the woman's daughter was healed from that hour. Verbum Domini.
Laus tibi, Christe.
Today, one of the themes we see is this growth or this expansion of the covenantal promises to the Israelites, to the Jews, expanded for all. Even the pagans, the non-Jewish people are called to come to be in covenant with God and Jesus Christ. Jesus brings a new universalism to the faith. He expands it open to all. We see the Old Testament as a preparation for the coming of the Messiah to fulfill the law, to fulfill the covenant. So he's especially coming for his Jewish people, of which he is Jewish, fulfillment of all these prophecies. And then he comes and does something even unexpected. It's prophesied here in the first reading, but still something unexpected about it, that it's a salvation open to all. And the first reading today from the prophet Isaiah, this is from what some scholars divide up Isaiah. It's a huge, long book, a third section. This is after the exile. So you have a section that's before the Babylonian captivity, during the captivity, and after the captivity. So this is about 475 BC. It was written post-exile. The exile was 587 BC to 538. They're hauled off into captivity in Babylon. They come back. They're poor. They're trying to eke out an existence. The Persians, Cyrus comes in, conquers the Babylonians, and he lets them come back, and he's going to let them practice their faith. And they're trying to, get restarted after this generation of being in exile. So it's a struggle. And then some of the remnant peoples that stayed behind, there was growing tensions between the returnees and those who stayed behind, and there was a delay in building the temple. And we see the exhortation to the people from prophets, put the temple first, put God's the practice of your faith first, and rebuild the temple. And even then, it wasn't as great as the former temple that was built by Solomon. But they were sent into exile because of breaking the covenant. So in this part, written in there, after their return, they're exhorted again, do right. My salvation is about to come. My salvation is near. Their line of kings is even cut off here in the Babylonian captivity. So they have truly been humbled. They're struggling and, turning back to the Lord, maybe in a deeper way. And Isaiah, the third section, is exhorting them to do right. Now I'm going to do something great. And this is, of course, speaking of what he's going to do in Jesus Christ, the Son of God. And we see a prophecy of this new openness to all peoples. It speaks of foreigners joining themselves to the Lord, of foreigners coming to him, being obedient to God, keeping the Sabbath holy. We see throughout the Old Testament, the election of Israel, that this is God's chosen people, that he raises them up from Abraham and Sarah, who were elderly, could not conceive, makes them fruitful. We have the patriarchs, then the bondage in Egypt, and then that great exodus, liberation, come back. They're given the land flowing with milk and honey. Israel is his chosen people. He blesses them. So they had a deep sense that, you part of that physical lineage of Israel, those people belong to the covenant. And here, in this passage, this last section, Isaiah speaks of this new age that is to come. For my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples. And he's calling all, I will bring them all to my holy mountain, the holy mountain of Israel, where the temple resides. So Jesus is coming to fulfill this expansion, this promise given to all. And he is the new temple. He is the place where we can come and worship the Father in spirit and truth. He says in Matthew's Gospel earlier, I tell you there is something greater than the temple here. He identifies himself with the temple. He says, destroy this temple, I will rebuild it in 3 days. The purpose of the old temple passes away, and he fulfills it. This place of God's presence, this place we can come and have access and worship to the Father, is in Jesus Christ, not through physical lineage, but through faith in him, open to all. If we believe in Jesus, we have the forgiveness of sins. If we're obedient to him, to his teachings preserved for us in the church, we know the fullness of all that he came to give us. And all that happens in him. He is the fulfillment of all things. And in today's gospel passage, we see this expansion, this universalism, we call it. And Jesus is way up in the north in this region of Tyre and Sidon, these coastal cities on the Mediterranean Sea, an area they call Phoenicia. Sidon in the scriptures is referred to as the firstborn son of Canaan. Remember the Canaanites were in this promised land. Moses had to come back, and then we just started the readings in the cycle about Joshua and leading the people in after Moses led them through the desert, and they have to conquer this land. They have to drive out the Canaanites, Hittites, Jebusites, Amalekites, whoever else, all these big groups of people. They have to come and take the land. And so this woman is from this pagan region, way up in the north on the coast. She's a Canaanite woman, Sidon, the firstborn son of Canaan. So she is an example of a person, non-Jew, coming to faith in the Messiah and being blessed for it. She calls out to him, have pity on me, son of David. She knows who he is, recognizes who he is, fulfillment of all Jewish prophecy. And she has this desperate need that her daughter is tormented by a demon. And she keeps calling out with perseverance. The disciples, as they do a number of times in the gospel, they really don't look good in these scenes, but they tell Jesus, send her away. She's troubling us. Probably she's a Canaanite. She's not one of us. And Jesus seems to affirm this. He says, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Saying that he is the fulfillment, he is the Messiah, and he pushes back on her a little. The woman, though, is undeterred, comes, does him homage, and just says, Lord, help me. Lord, help me. Such a beautiful, short prayer. Sometimes we think we have to be real poetic or have to have a real ornate prayer life. Our circumstances have to be just right. The church has to be perfect. The choir has to be perfect. The choir is perfect, but some places it's not as good. Everything's got to be right, then I can pray. I got to feel good. I tell people when I'm on a pilgrimage, chaplain or something, you're going to these great places of worship and maybe where the Blessed Mother's appeared or something. I say, it doesn't matter, you're tired, you're jet lagged. Doesn't matter. These are places of grace. Bring the body, pray. You receive grace. So it's not dependent on circumstance, lineage, who you are. It just has this simple, deep, from the depths of her being, Lord, help me. You can feel the desperation in that. And that's such a powerful prayer for us, too. When we're kind of at the end of our rope, we're struggling with something, might be a sickness, or might be a concern for loved ones, or whatever, Lord, help me. And again, Jesus pushes back. It is not right to take the food of the children and throw it to the dogs. The Canaanites were referred to, the pagans, the Gentiles, were dogs by the Jews. We're the elected, chosen people. You're outside of this covenant. We're not to have anything to do with you, eat with you, mix with you. The Pharisees emphasized this separation. Our response is not to go away in a huff, not to be outraged, not to be insulted, which we can take offense. That's so sad to me. I hear that sometimes, people walk away from the church. They're upset by something that was told to them. Maybe the Christian was having a bad day or something. No excuse for it, but they leave. She comes back again and says, please, Lord, even dogs eat the scraps from the table. Israel's been given a bountiful table. They have the Messiah. And she just wants a scrap. She wants help from him. And then Jesus, who's pushing back on her and even seemingly insulting her, he praises her faith and says, "O woman, great is your faith." So it's preserved, immortalized in the scriptures for all time. He praises this woman's faith. You think about how great that is. Jesus praising her faith. Imagine if Jesus praised our faith. What higher compliment can you be given? So, Augustine would talk about, St. Augustine in this passage, that he's making an example of her. He wants others to see the witness of her faith, that she's humble, that she's turning to the Lord with a real sincerity. She's not deterred. She keeps seeking him. And even in our own prayer life, when we have to persevere in prayer, when we have to be humble, maybe that seemingly unanswered prayer or that kind of darkness that we're in, again, Augustine would say that the Lord's stretching our heart because he wants to fill it even more. He's teaching us a deeper faith, a greater humility, a more purified motive in our prayer. When we get to that point, well, we start seeking his will. We might be so married to what we want in our prayer. This has got to happen, Lord. And it might be a very good thing, but maybe God's plan and will for us is in another direction. And maybe he's going to draw some new fruitfulness, and it might be a difficult road, but he's going to do great things with us. He's going to make all things work towards the good for us, as Paul tells us. And that unanswered prayer, that kind of pushback, is deepening us in our interior life. You know, we need to grow in humility. We need to grow in a deeper prayer. And we need to get to that point where we're truly seeking His will. And we hold all things with an open hand. That the Lord can take it from us if He wants. He can give it to us if He wants. But we're seeking His will. His will is the good that we seek first. So we see she is a witness to receiving these great blessings, these great works of God through faith, and not just because of being born an Israelite. She receives the covenantal blessings by faith. That's what Jesus wants to do for us. He wants us to cry out to Him, to depend on Him, to seek Him, to find this new fullness in Him.